Imagine this. You're at the airport, maybe grabbing a coffee before your flight. You probably feel pretty calm, right? A quiet confidence about stepping onto that plane.
Yeah, generally you do.
Then your phone buzzes, it's a news alert, a tragic train derailment maybe, or a devastating bus crash claiming dozens of lives just, miles away on the ground.
Yeah.
There's this striking paradox that really hit us when we started looking into this feeling of security when you're thousands of feet up versus the daily gamble of ground travel in the very same country.
It really is a stark contrast.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
That difference, that stark split, is exactly what pulled us into this deep dive. We really wanted to figure out why. Why have India's skies achieved such remarkable safety records while its roads and railways, well, they continue to be a bit of a perilous mess, frankly, fraught with risk.
Definitely.
So we've been digging through the facts, the hard figures, and honestly some truly unexpected reasons behind it all. It's been a journey through these contrasts that, for us anyway, was incredibly illuminating.
It's a fascinating dichotomy to explore, really. What became truly apparent as we looked into it was how two vastly different safety cultures and regulatory environments can not only coexist, but sort of thrive in parallel.
Right.
And that leads to such wildly different outcomes for travelers all within the same nation. It really highlights a fundamental difference in how risk is managed and maybe more importantly, how it's perceived across different ways of getting around.
Let's start with the good news then, because it is genuinely good news and it shows what's possible. When we began researching Indian aviation, the progress, well, it was genuinely striking.
Impressive stuff.
Air travel has become remarkably safe. We saw that in 2023, India hit this major milestone. According to the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, there were effectively 0 accidents per million departures for scheduled commercial flights.
0. That's huge.
Think about that for a second, 0. It's a massive leap from just the year before, 2022, when it was 0.87 accidents per million.
Yeah, huge jump. And to put that into real-world terms for you listening, it basically means you're statistically more likely to, lose your luggage than be in a commercial plane crash in India these days.
Which is kind of reassuring when you're boarding, isn't it?
Absolutely. And looking back historically, we noted a stark change. Between 1991 and 2000, there were 7 fatal commercial airliner crashes.
Right.
But then you fast forward to the decade, 2011 to 2020, and that number just plummeted to 2. We're talking specific tragic incidents, of course, like the Air India Express crash in Mangaluru in 2010 and the one in Kozhikode in 2020.
Still terrible tragedies.
Unspeakable tragedies, yes.
Yeah.
But the overall trend, the reduction, that's not just luck. It's clearly the result of some very deliberate, sustained efforts over time.
Okay, so what were those efforts? What specifically drove that impressive turnaround? What levers were pulled?
That's the key question, isn't it? And what we observed is that the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, the DGCA, has truly intensified its oversight. It wasn't just a vague tightening up.
No.
No, we're talking about very specific measures. Pilot training, for instance. It became far more rigorous. This meant things like mandating more simulator hours, much more, introducing advanced navigation tests, integrating sophisticated crew resource management, or CRM training.
CRM, that's about teamwork in the cockpit, right?
Exactly. Teamwork, communication, decision-making under pressure. It shifted the focus from just, flying the plane to managing complex, dynamic situations effectively.
Makes sense.
And then on the maintenance side, the checks became incredibly stringent. Airlines now follow predictive maintenance schedules. So components get replaced based on predicted wear, not just after they fail.
Proactive rather than reactive.
Precisely. There's also really robust component tracking, so every single part has a documented history. And we saw an increase in surprise audits by the DGCA, unannounced checks on airline operations and maintenance facilities.
Keeping everyone on their toes.
You bet. And alongside that, there's been this widespread adoption of advanced technology, modern air traffic control, better ground proximity warning systems, sophisticated navigation gear. It all makes flights smoother and significantly safer.
And the airlines themselves.
They've played a big part too. Consistently investing in newer, safer fleets, actively retiring older aircraft that, might pose higher risks. So you put all that together, it demonstrates a really deep systemic commitment to safety. And it's clearly paid off.
It really has transformed the picture in the air. But even with all that progress, we can't ignore that very recent devastating event. The Air India crash in Ahmedabad. That was a real gut punch happening just last week. A flight bound for London. It plummeted into a college hostel. The scale of it is just heartbreaking.
Hmm.
241 passengers, several people on the ground killed, over 270 lives lost.
It's truly heartbreaking, yes. And while that specific tragedy is, statistically speaking, an outlier in India's vastly improved safety record,
Important context.
very important. But it's also such a stark reminder, isn't it? That even in this safer era, one single critical mistake, whether it's a technical glitch or human error, as the early reports seem to suggest, and the investigation is obviously ongoing,
Right.
it can instantly turn a routine flight into an unimaginable nightmare. This crash, though rare, has absolutely sparked critical debates.
Understandably.
And we found, while fatal crashes are indeed rare now, near misses and technical issues, well, they aren't entirely absent. And these incidents, even if they don't end in catastrophe, they do chip away at public confidence.
Like what sort of incidents?
Well, for instance, we noted an Air India flight, Toronto to Delhi back on May 2nd, 2025. It had to be diverted to Frankfurt because of a technical issue.
Okay.
And then on May 13th, flights to places like Jammu and Amritsar were actually canceled over security concerns.
Yeah.
These things might not make global headlines,
No, probably not.
but they do prompt questions, right? Questions about the underlying resilience of the system, even if the top-line safety record looks strong. The core message for us became pretty clear. Almost safe just isn't good enough when you're 30,000 feet up. It reinforces the need for absolute, constant vigilance, no matter how good the stats look on paper.
Sobering thought. Okay, so if the skies are mostly clearer than they've ever been, let's pivot dramatically to the ground below. Because, wow, that's where the picture gets.
Oh, chaotic.
Completely different story. This was the truly shocking contrast we found. Roads and railways are, unfortunately, the real villains here. They claim thousands upon thousands of lives every single year. It's almost like India's ground transport systems are auditioning for a disaster movie, constantly.
That's a grim way to put it, but yeah.
Let's just look at the road statistics. They're sobering. The National Crime Records Bureau, the NCRB, reported, get this, 153,972 road accident deaths in 2021 alone.
Staggering number.
It really is. Think about it. That's roughly 422 people dying every single day. Enough to fill a small plane, day in, day out.
Wow.
And we also saw numbers like 412,432 road accidents overall and 384,448 injuries in that same year, 2021. It's like wiping out the population of a small city every year from traffic incidents.
Public health crisis, really.
Absolutely. And when we dug into the culprits, it's kind of a familiar, depressing list. You have dangerously overloaded trucks, swaying precariously, drunk drivers, roads that just suddenly narrow or lack proper markings. And yes, even stray cows deciding to mediate traffic.
The cows are definitely a factor in some areas.
We found that overspeeding, just plain speeding, caused 71% of all fatal crashes. 71%. And rural areas get hit disproportionately hard. You've got narrow roads, few traffic signals, laws often aren't enforced, and maybe drivers are just more reckless.
A dangerous combination. And then you shift to the railway system. It carries millions every day, but sometimes feels like it's operating right on a knife edge.
Yeah.
The NCRB recorded 17,993 railway accidents in 2021. That was actually a 38% jump from 2020.
A jump. Wow.
Yeah. And the Mumbai Suburban Railway Network, it really stands out as an epicenter of this chaos. In 2023 alone, we learned that 2,590 commuters tragically died there.
2,590 just on the Mumbai local.
Just in Mumbai. That works out to roughly 7 deaths every single day.
7 people a day. Just trying to get to work.
Exactly. We heard about these harrowing incidents like 5 commuters falling to their deaths from a speeding local train just last week. It truly makes you wonder, who knew going to work could feel like a contact sport?
That's terrifying.
It is. The sheer volume of people, you see them clinging to open doorways, combined with this speed and frequency of the trains. It creates this almost unimaginable level of daily risk.
So what's behind all this ground chaos? What are the systemic failures?
Well, when we connect this all together, it really looks like a combination of deeply embedded systemic failures fueling this mess. We identified several key issues. First, just plain poor infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's not just potholes. It's dilapidated railway tracks that haven't seen upgrades in decades, signaling systems that fail frequently, unlit highways, lack of proper safety barriers, missing lane markings across vast stretches of the country.
Right.
Second, there's lax enforcement. Traffic laws, railway safety rules. They often just aren't enforced with the rigor they desperately need. We see fines being easily avoided, maybe through bribery sometimes, and just not enough visible policing to act as a deterrent. It creates this culture of impunity almost,
People think they can get away with it.
pretty much. And third, critically, there's this widespread cultural chaltahai attitude,
Ah, yes, Cheltai.
which, essentially translates to it's fine or anything goes, it'll do. It's this informal acceptance of risk.
Hmm.
It's the mindset that lets a bus driver dangerously overtake on a blind curve, or a pedestrian casually jaywalk into traffic, or a motorcyclist ride without a helmet because, nothing will happen to me.
A dangerous complacency.
Very dangerous. It's a deep-seated belief that rules are flexible, maybe suggestions, and personal safety responsibility is secondary. And then you layer on top of all that the sheer volume of India's massive population, the immense strain this puts on an already fragile transport system. It just stretches everything thinner than ever.
Okay, so we've laid out the stark contrast, astounding success in the air, this dire situation on the ground. The big question then becomes, what does this mean for actually turning things around on the roads and rails? It's clearly not a simple fix, is it?
No, definitely not a snap-your-fingers solution. But we did identify some crucial areas, drawing partly from those aviation lessons that seem absolutely essential for making a real difference.
Right.
It really needs a multi-pronged approach to clear these clouds on the ground.
Yeah.
First off, it's about genuinely stricter enforcement.
Okay, how?
Well, not just issuing more tickets. We're talking meaningful fines that actually hurt, consistent license suspensions that deter repeat offenders, and high-impact public awareness campaigns. Campaigns that use real-life consequences to make people stop and think.
Make it real for people.
Exactly. And using technology for enforcement too, like AI-powered cameras, to automatically detect speeding or running red lights. That reduces the human element where things can get fuzzy.
Less room for adjustment.
Precisely.
Okay.
Second, upgrading infrastructure is just non-negotiable. This means serious investment in better roads, proper multi-lane highways, clear markings, good lighting, safe pedestrian walkways.
And for the railways.
Modernizing signaling systems is critical, converting more of those dangerous level crossings into safer overpasses or underpasses, and updating the train fleets themselves with better safety features. The government announces big plans, sure, but the budget has to truly match that ambition, and projects need to actually get completed properly.
Not just announced.
Right. Third, and this is maybe the toughest nut to crack,
Yeah.
changing mindsets, ditching that Chaltahai attitude.
How do you even begin?
It takes national campaigns that aren't just informational, but really emotionally resonant. School programs that embed safety awareness from day one. Maybe even viral content using social media to push basic safety changes. Wear your helmet, buckle up, don't text and drive. Making safety a cultural norm, not an inconvenience.
Make it cool to be safe, almost.
Sort of, yeah. Fourth, we absolutely need to tech it up more on the ground.
Yeah.
Using drones for traffic surveillance, maybe AI cameras to predict accident hotspots, smart traffic systems that adapt in real time. This can help monitor, catch violations, maybe even predict issues before they happen.
Proactive again.
Yes. And finally, really applying those hard-won lessons from aviation. Adopting that strict oversight, the meticulous regular training, the absolute zero tolerance for sloppiness that made flying so safe.
So like simulator training for bus drivers.
Why not? If pilots do it every 6 months, why shouldn't professional drivers have continuous development and assessments? Implementing proper safety management systems, like in aviation, across road and rail, focusing on proactive risk assessment, not just investigating after the crash.
Makes sense. But here's the rub, right? All of this costs a fortune.
A huge amount of money, yes.
And India's budget is always stretched thin. Plus, you mentioned corruption. That's a massive obstacle, isn't it? Eating funds before they ever pave a road or fix a signal.
It's a significant challenge, no doubt. Funds can disappear. So while these solutions seem clear on paper, actually implementing them is incredibly complex.
So what's the realistic path?
Well, for us, maybe the takeaway was that starting small but focused could be key. Fixing a few key high-fatality routes properly. Cracking down hard and consistently on just one or two major violations like drunk driving or speeding. And really working on shifting public perception in targeted campaigns. Build some momentum, show it can be done. One safer road, one safer journey at a time.
Okay, that sounds more manageable. Now, you might be sitting there listening thinking, okay, interesting stats, big grim, but why should I really care? I'm just trying to get through my commute without losing my mind.
Right, it can feel distant.
But here's where it gets really relevant for all of us.
Absolutely. When we connect all these dots, you realize transport safety isn't just about abstract numbers or government reports. It's profoundly about people.
Yeah.
Every single road crash, every train death, every plane tragedy, it represents a family torn apart. A dream, a life, just snuffed out too soon. We were really struck by the thought that 23-month-old toddler on the Ahmedabad flight, that could have been someone you know. That commuter in Mumbai who fell. That could have been your friend just trying to get home.
Makes it very personal.
These are not statistics. They are individual lives, families, communities impacted forever. And beyond that immense human tragedy, there's a huge economic impact too.
How so?
Well, a broken, unsafe transport system isn't just deadly, it's a massive drag on the whole economy. Think about the cost healthcare for accident victims, repairs to damaged vehicles and infrastructure, lost productivity from people injured or killed, disrupted supply chains. It costs billions.
So improving safety actually saves money in the long run.
Exactly. It doesn't just save lives. It saves money, it saves time for everyone, and it helps build a stronger, more efficient, and frankly, a more humane country. It's about moving towards a nation where just getting around doesn't feel like a daily survival game.
So the takeaway from this deep dive seems pretty clear then. The skies. Safer than ever, a real triumph for Indian aviation. They deserve immense credit.
They really do.
But the ground? Well, it remains a dangerous adventure. The roads and rails urgently need that reality check. Because the Ahmedabad crash, as grim as it was, is a rare event, a reminder for vigilance. But the daily ground disasters, that's the true silent tragedy unfolding constantly. So maybe next time you're navigating India's ground transport, stuck in that chaotic jam, squeezed onto a crowded train, just consider the irony. You are likely undertaking a far, far riskier journey than someone cruising peacefully thousands of feet above you.
It's a sobering thought. And it raises an important question for all of us, doesn't it? What if we collectively demanded more?
More than just.
More than just shiny new airports. What about fundamental life-saving improvements for the daily commute? What if we demanded roads that aren't obstacle courses and trains that don't feel like playing Russian roulette with lives every morning?
The shift in priorities.
Exactly. Until then, please, stay safe out there. Be aware of your surroundings. And maybe, just maybe, let that realization fuel a demand for real, tangible change in how India moves on the ground.